And welcome to Rauta's opinion videos. Today's topic is why do digital formats suck when it comes to music? Now this is a topic which I have been talking about a little bit more or less in some previous videos, but once again I kind of feel I just have to talk about a little bit more. If you think it's waste of time, just skip it and move on. But today I want to talk about this very topic a little bit more. Now, there's been a lot of claims that physical format is about to die, and that talk has been going on for many years. And how the digital format will just rise and take care of the rest, and that's it. Everything is digital, no going back whatsoever. But if you look at the figures, not just CD sales, but vinyl sales and even tape sales have been doing quite well. Of course, this is a different thing when it comes to different genres, but for example, more or less underground music or so-called cult music, that has been going quite well with tapes and vinyl especially all kind of special editions, colored vinyls or collector's editions with some extra stuff and all that. They have been doing way better than what they used to do in the past years. And if you go to just about any festival, metal or otherwise, I guess, I'm not sure about otherwise, but festivals related to metal music anyway, they are doing well with vinyls, and more often than not, even small cult acts, the small underground names, basically nobody's supposed to know worldwide. Anyhow, those vinyls end up very soon sold out, and there won't be enough reprints to cover all the needs. Or at least that's how it seems to be nowadays. One might question why it is that so. Why is it so that, the digital format won't just, cut it and take care of that and this and whatever. No, digital format is obviously not just one format, more than, physical format, it's just one, like CD. Physical formats usually mean, CDs, obviously, vinyls, tapes, but also DVDs and Blu-rays. Now, Blu-rays are not that common, really, at least when it comes to, getting review copies, or, I don't get to see them that much, in stores either. Some bigger ones may be getting them, but more or less, they're kind of a rarity. DVDs, a little bit, yes, but once again, it's kind of a marginal thing. But CDs, they are not going anywhere, it seems. And in fact, like I was stating in some other previous video, there is no sign whatsoever about CDs going to die. After all, I've never in my past 16 or whatever years have gotten this much CDs waiting for to be reviewed as today. And there are a couple of reasons for that, but even so, lots of CDs coming all the time. But even so, of course, digital is crushing, by numbers that these physical formats. And it's clear that we live in a very peculiar time or era, considering that more and more bands are appearing all the time, and way more are, just getting born versus the ones that are just, dying. If you take a look at, for example, Metal Archive's site, they have been claiming that there are more than 120 metal bands in the world. And let me tell you this much if you're not familiar with the site, because at least I've been adding there some bands for last, I don't know, 4 years or so, and been using for that site very long. Probably there all the time I've been, doing reviews. The thing is that they're nowadays way more picky which bands they actually approve to decide. I've been adding like some metal bands, or which in my opinion are more or less metal, but getting rejected because they're more like hard rock or whatever. Of course, there are bands like Mortis on the side, which never basically did any metal, and there are music bands like Rammstein, which is a big kind of industrial metal band, but nevertheless isn't approved for their whatever various reasons. And then again, there are bands like say Metal Crew, which never been kind of a metal, but of course a hard rock band. But then again, some more metallic acts don't get approved because they are seen as hard rock rather than metal for the administrator side anyway. Now, my point is exactly that more than 120,000 bands. That's a huge number of bands. Just about metal music, and of course there are lots of different genres which don't just belong to Rauta channel. The point being here, it's not like metal is dying, it's not like it's thinning the numbers, but quite the opposite. And even though I'm getting more and more physical releases, basically like every year, also the digital figures are, getting bigger and bigger, and there's no way to review that all. Now, why I just so happen to hate so much, more like dislike digital format versus the typical physical ones, is that it's kind of annoying in so many ways. Surely there are good sides in having a music portable and just taking it everywhere and stuff like that. I mean, I sometimes do jogging or when I'm doing powerlifting at my home gym and whatever, digital files, they are really useful. Or when I travel, on a bus or even in my own car to some place. Surely I'd rather handle the music digitally versus CDs. Especially that, using CD or digital file, it's basically the same when you're, traveling. You don't get to usually read the lyrics, you don't get to see the band pictures and all that stuff. But what is the difference when you're actually listening at home to music? Maybe your favorite chair in the living room, maybe you're, laying down on your couch, maybe you're just, sleeping in your bed. Maybe you're reading the lyrics. Maybe you're looking at, those booklets and whatnot. Maybe you just want to feel the vinyl touch, smell the plastic and all that stuff. Then it becomes a whole different show. Now, music as well as any art or even entertainment it's all about the feeling. It's all about getting, that particular set of mind that seeps into your brain, and you're like, just whether you're enjoying, and usually we don't get to listen to music which is not enjoyable, I mean like voluntarily that is, but I mean it's a state of mind. It's a kind of like anything what you want to do in your life in order to enjoy. Doesn't matter if you're talking about sex or music or I don't know, book, movie, whatever. The thing is, we want to enjoy it, and most likely on our own terms, right? So, for example, many people like to actually read the lyrics, open that booklet or maybe the vinyl booklet, gatefold, whatever, and they want to, see the pictures for real. They want to feel the concrete item, not concrete in the terms of whatever. But the thing is, they want to have it in their own hands. They want to see, smell, feel, just get to the feeling, atmosphere, whatever you want to call it. And that is not something digital just does the same way. And I think there's a big gap here between music and other formats. For example, I've been years and years, playing like video games. It doesn't matter to me if they're physical or digital, because after all, there are no booklets unless you're buying a collector's edition with the art book and whatever. But I mean, the typical one is just, a disc and the whatever format, Blu-ray or whatever, just the case. There's nothing else. So that's a moot point when it comes to games. Same goes for movies and TV series for most part. I mean, I've been reviewing them as well. And most of the time, they're just like cheap ass versions. There's maybe a inlay paper underneath the tray, and that's it. So there is no mood. All the extras are on the disc. So once again, it's a moot point when it comes to that. And books, well, we all know what's the difference, reading a ebook versus the real deal. I mean, I enjoy both, make no mistake, it depends totally what I'm reading. But, for example, when you're, reading an older book, maybe, a hardcover, for example, there is something different, having your hands and that and putting your bookmark maybe. Seeing those pictures, for example, like when I was reading Jenna Jameson, the porn star autobiography, or maybe not, just biography anyway. And that was like really glossy pictures, nudity or whatever. I mean, they look nice. Same applies to Arnold Schwarzenegger biography, which I was reading a couple of years ago. And there is that feeling, even though they were not hardcover copies, but just kind of getting that feeling. And music, for me at least, it's totally different breed. Because, for example, it's not just some disc I put in, maybe review-wise. I must admit, many times it's that. But also when, doing my reviews, and you probably know what I'm talking about if you're watching this video in the first place. I want to show you what's inside. How does the band look like when you have photos and whatnot? How is the inlay? What is the font they've been using? What is the story they're telling with the visual side of the album? That doesn't happen with digital ones. And it's not even about the money or file size. Come on. There's plenty of that, way more than with physical discs. But how come almost every freaking time I get this a digital promo? They're hardly nothing else but just the tracks. One could say it's more than sufficient, but just maybe, imagine just for a second, just maybe I want to have more information about the band without spending my time googling up, especially if it's with a kind of a stupid name with a band. I mean, which have multiple copies. Like for example, today I reviewed an Italian band called Sudden Death. Now, can you guess how many sudden deaths there are, all just alone in Metal Archives? Not to mention the other bands which never made that far. Like 13. Now, I had no idea which sudden death that was, so I just have to, browse basically every band through, because the disc I was getting, that was pretty much like typical digital promo copy. Just a CDR with, the band's name and title of the album and some links, you can find more information on these social media pages. Wow, much wow. The thing is, I went all these 13 or so names through, and I couldn't find which one that was, because the name wouldn't match with Metal Axe's name. I'm like, what's going on? I mean, because this must not be the number 14 of Sudden Deaths. And then I think I Googled it. Actually, I'm not sure how it went, but soon I figured out, or maybe there was just, I was looking for the releases of 2018 with this stuff, and the release names, and then it clicked me. The name of that CDR for the release was wrong. That was said something like Stone Prevails. But there was no Stone Prevails by this Italian Sudden Death. They had this EP called Stillborn from 2018. So I clicked at Stillborn on Metal Archives, and boom, wow, it was Stillborn EP, just with a fake name. And that is what happens, well, not too often, but way too often, if you get my drift. There are mistakes in digital files. Maybe that's kind of a, sloppiness steps in, because it's so easy. You're just like, I'm typing all the names for this digital promo. And then they just don't, remember to fix those typos and whatever. And then those promos get sent in. And then the sent promos reach the whoever, and there are lots of mistakes. There might be no photos, there are no covers. That's the typical which they usually have, but not always. There might be no information whatsoever. And I'm not obviously talking just about promos, which don't, affect most people. I'm also talking about, Spotify's or YouTube's or whatever you can find music in digital format. They are lacking information, or even worse, they might have misinformation. Maybe the country of origin is wrong, maybe the lineup information is outdated, maybe the cover image is wrong, maybe there is none whatsoever. And versus the physical, you usually have the stuff correct. Surely there are points when there are mistakes, but rarely. And usually you have lyrics. Not always, of course, there are bands which just don't want to print them. Or maybe label is just so cheap as that they're hardly a cover image, with the just, two-sided, and they cannot fit those lyrics. But those are really, really rare examples. So usually when you have that physical format, you have everything you basically need to. You don't need an internet access to enjoy that album. You can just pretty much read the lyrics, see the photos, pictures, whatever. And then if you want to have more, then you can just, enter the band pages, Facebook, Bandcamp, SoundCloud, whatever there might be, or even traditional homepage. But it kind of bugs me that when it's about, reaching this feeling, that atmosphere, so often these digital files feel just like files. They're only one click away of just, deleting those goddamn albums if you don't just feel like listening to. And as a review person also, I feel there's a huge difference whether I'm getting a CD from a band or a label for review. Sometimes it's even a handwritten note. I just can ignore those kind of, releases. For me, it feels like this is kind of a mutual thing. They're doing me a favor and I try to pay that favor back by doing the review and talking about it, whether it's Rauta or other media I'm working for sometimes as a hobby. And it kind of bothers me when that happens digital. People are like expecting like, hey, you get the digital files, you can pretty much review and blah blah blah. And I'm like, dude, I get dozens of physical copies already waiting for to get review. And I get hundreds, and I'm not exaggerating here, I get hundreds of digital files waiting for me to listen. And I tried to be this idealist guy who just, went through basically every metal release I was getting digital. I had to think about it for a while because, for some reason I sometimes get non-metal releases. They might not be bad, but I mean they're beyond the scope, so I just usually delete them after a track or two if I just feel like they are not my cup of tea. But I mean, those metal ones I tried to, for many, many months, just, diligently trying to go through them, even if they were shit after like one or two songs, like maybe I just, go through and, now I can actually judge the band or form an opinion about it, whether it's good or bad or just whatever. And now I don't feel like doing that anymore. Not only because I have so many physical copies, but that surely plays a major factor here, but because of these digital files are kind of, they're meaningless. So, for example, if I download a track from labels I pull, or maybe I get sent, a Dropbox link, or doesn't matter which way it comes, they're all the same basically. Usually having way too, you know, not needed amount of information, missing these essential stuff like covers and whatever. And I just like listen to a couple of tracks and I feel like, oh man, this is mediocre. And I'm not gonna, review digital stuff on Rauta anyway. And if my only reward, so to speak, is getting those digital files versus the work I have to put both listening and also writing a review, I feel like it's, waste of my time. Because after all, I could basically listen to that same stuff on YouTube, Spotify, or just whatever. So if I'm left with just, bunch of digital crap, why would I bother? I mean, it's like It's like reviewing material you get for free anyway. You know, those newspapers. I don't know how they are handled in different countries and different places. But for example, in Finland, we get like twice a week. This is different locally, of course. But for example, where I live, twice a week we get that amount of advertising material. Like the free newspapers, which expenses are covered, basically by these ads. And of course, while they have local news, they are all also more filled with all kind of ads and whatnot, versus the traditional newspaper you actually pay money for. But these free of charge newspapers, they're probably a better word for that, but I don't really know. Um, that reviewing that kind of stuff would make no sense. I mean, everybody's anyway getting it for free. And if you're doing reading for free, it kind of makes very little sense, unless that is you are a very enthusiastic hobbyist or whatever, reading that kind of material. But to me, it doesn't make sense. I mean, there's supposed to be this kind of a fair deal trade. For example, review guys normally don't get paid, and I guess that's just how the way things are. I'm not gonna say it's reasonable. I'm not gonna say it's fair, but that's how things are. And after all, while it's hobby and you get CDs in return for your work, it's tolerable. It's totally agreeable. I mean, after all, you could just quit or start cherry picking like some people do. Just review the albums they're interested in. Like if you're like an Immortal fan, you just take the Immortal album. If you're a Metallica fan, you just take that one. Unfortunately, of course, it doesn't work like that. And more than that, I am just, in that sense, kind of autist or whatever. And I want to review the bad ones too, because I want to, separate the good stuff from the bad one. And I try to do these videos and written reviews as well in order to, keep people informed, get nice recommendations, and on the other hand, give some warnings when they're bad stuff. But when it comes to digital files, doing that kind of makes no sense. And, it lacks the feeling, it lacks the information, or like I said, misinformation. And that is something that kind of annoys me. And I know there are many people who are, collectors. They can just stand the idea of listening music to Spotify. Like one person said it, one shouldn't ever listen to Burzum on Spotify. That's kind of like cardinal sin or something like that. Well, I'm not that idealist anyhow, and it's not like I'm gonna make a big fuss about it, but I still felt like I had to do this rant, because after all, like I said, to conclude this way too lengthy video, music is about passion. It's about that feeling. It's about that art and enjoyment. And when that is taken away, by stripping everything but just the music, I think it's like half empty glass. I'm not gonna say it's half full, because I don't feel like it is. Like I said, it's only one click away from deleting that stuff, versus that CD or vinyl you have on your coffee table and you're like, man, I don't know if I like Barrett enough to actually have this. Should I just give it to a friend, or maybe sell it on eBay, or just give one more spin just for the sake that I actually bought this album? Now that's something to think about. Or is it? Anyhow, thank you for watching, if you actually managed to do all the way here. And as always, should you have any questions, opinions, you probably have on this subject, don't be afraid to leave your comment on the box below. I'm glad to hear your opinion. Does it really matter, physical versus digital, or are you a picky one? Do you have a format that is number one for your selection, collection, whatever? Thank you for watching, and see you soon with more Rauta stuff coming your way. Good night.